Hello and welcome to another edition of Progression with HydroKidz. I am Jerin and today once again we have...
And it's Tara.
Tara. Okay, so today we'd like to go over a tiny bit of ducklings and then we'll move on to beginners.
Yep, so in our last video we went over all the progressions of how to do ducklings. Obviously ducklings is more water confidence with a little bit more play involved in it. Obviously beginners.
Yeah, so beginners, we start introducing the stages. And that's when we begin with things like blapped. So, as we know, the foundation of swimming is body position and...
legs, obviously, because we
legs.
need a little bit of movement going now.
Absolutely, it's not arms, okay? So I know lots of us, when we speak with parents, they just want to see children swimming and using their arms. It's not all about that, certainly not at the beginning.
No.
So we wanted to go back, just remind you all, ducklings is all about that water confidence, learning through fun, and it's for the little people, okay, little ones. Whereas beginners
is you're looking at your age 6s to 7s and upwards, so that's when they're just starting year 1 and 2 at school, so they're learning to listen to teachers, learning new skills, and this is also the same in swimming.
Yeah, but equally some children won't necessarily have gone through ducklings, so it's actually the sort of water confidence element for the slightly bigger children. Okay, so ducklings, water confidence for little people.
Little people and beginners for the bigger ones.
For the bigger ones. Okay, wonderful. So, I think before we do that, we'd like to introduce blapped, or remind you of blapped. I know you all know it, but why do we have blapped?
So, blapped is the foundation of swimming. Okay, that's where we start with. You've got to have a good body position before we go anywhere near movement through water. If you don't have that body position, nothing else is going to connect into that swimming stroke.
Exactly, and without good body position, the legs could be too deep, and therefore you're just kicking against all that deep water. The heads could be in the wrong position, all those kind of things. So body position, number one most important thing for swimming.
Mm-hmm. Then you're going to bring in your legs, which is obviously the propulsion through your stroke. So that's, I always tell the children, it's your engine. If your engine's not working, you're not going to get anywhere. But you've got to have good body position before you bring those legs in. Yeah. Because you're just not going to get anywhere if your legs are under the water.
Yeah, and those legs have got to be good. We don't want to be seeing big, bendy, clanky, cranky knees. We want to see long legs, and that's what we want by the end of stage 2, but certainly mastered by 4. But obviously mastered by 4, that includes things like butterfly and breaststroke.
So that's all the strokes together,
yeah.
Yeah.
Then we've got, so then we've got arms. Now, we're saying here that they need to be mastered by 5. Yes, do some introduction at 2.
Absolutely.
But don't make it the whole purpose of your lesson. You know, if you've got, 15-20 minutes of your main element, that should be focused on body and legs.
So that's all your push and glides, your floating and your kicking.
Yeah. And throughout that, we use things like noodles and floats, and we progress through, don't we, from the noodle to 2 floats to 1 float, and holding different actions. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And then, by all means, if they do that, get them doing it in a push and glide position, that's wonderful. And then, maybe as a bit of a trick, right, why don't you swim back to the wall? So you're allowing them to use a bit of arms, but we're not really focusing on it in that beginner phase. Okay? Breathing. It's quite a late point, isn't it? But we're talking about mastering it, but again, that's sort of mastering it with the butterfly and the breaststroke and all those other things. Doesn't mean that we are not introducing it way, way earlier, blowing bubbles.
Yeah, so obviously ducklings, you're blowing your bubbles, so that's the beginning of the breathing technique. That's the same as beginners. It's blowing the bubbles, it's not rhythmical breathing like you do in front crawl stroke.
Yeah. And we need to make sure that they're comfortable with their face in the water, and part of that is either holding their breath or blowing bubbles. So yes, it's mastering it, but that's mastering that perfect technique.
Yeah.
And then timing. putting it all together.
All together. It's like a big jigsaw.
Yes, absolutely.
Big jigsaw.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's blapped as a nice little reminder. So beginners then. Shall we start at stage 1?
Absolutely. So this is your water confidence for your bigger children. Okay,
Yeah.
so these are the ones who haven't gone through ducklings, have come straight into beginners who are age 6, 7, maybe 8. So
movement. Again, we talked about this a lot in the ducklings one, didn't we?
we did.
Movement doesn't mean swim perfectly. It says here, move forward, backwards, sideways, 5 metres. I like to do running warm-ups personally.
Absolutely. Jumping,
Yeah.
hopping.
Yeah, hopping, turn into bunny rabbits, turn into crabs.
Crabs going sideways, they like
Yeah.
that as well, don't they?
Exactly, and that ticks you off for the movement. But that's, again, water confidence. They've got to know how to move and feel the water, don't they? Scooping the water on the face, lots of these things they've done in ducklings if they've gone through ducklings, haven't they?
Yeah.
So some of them will move through this
So
quite quickly.
this is like just a recap of water confidence. Washing their face, going under a noodle with the watering can. It was all in our games video that we've done also.
Absolutely, but we want to see some of those movements with slightly better skill, don't we?
Yes.
So those pushing glides, of course, for their pushing glide stage 1, they don't have to have arms up, but they can. But they should at least be in that perfect body position with their arms by their side. And that will get them their push and glide front and back as long as they have good body position. Blapped.
And to get that good body position, start with those floats. So that's your pencil float, your star float. That's all that practice to get a good push and glide as well.
Yeah. And don't leave off things like these pull rules. I know some teachers feel like they don't need to do that. And we'll just do that at the end and they just tick it off.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, pull rules are really important. They're there for a reason. So introducing it to them every week. What do? We sit on the side, wait until you come in, reminding them of those things, and every time you say them, by the time you actually ask them, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd week, what are some of the pool rules? Well, I sit on the side and I wait until I'm told to get in.
And that's also
Brilliant.
all the water safety as well. It's all about being safe around the pool. So
Yeah.
it's very important to actually drill
Water
those
as
in.
a whole.
Absolutely.
Lots of parents, if you ask them why are they learning to swim, they're learning to swim because they want their children to be safe around water. And that's when they go to the beach, that's when they go to the pool, that's when they go walking around a lake, for example. Okay, happy with that?
Yeah. So, should we move on to stage 2?
Lovely, yeah, stage 2. So this is where we start to see some swimmers, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because those push and glides are in that perfect position, and when you have a perfect push and glide, everything just comes together, doesn't it?
Remember that jigsaw or the building blocks that we're trying to get through the strokes? So you've got your body position, then your legs.
Yeah.
All connects.
And maintaining that long position helps to encourage those long legs, doesn't it, as well? It encourages them not to do those bendy, clanky knees, and it gets them long, shaky legs with flippy, floppy feet, as I repeat and repeat and repeat. Blowing bubbles, we talked about already.
We have, yeah.
You did mention, we were talking about this before, about rhythmically 3. Lots of people think that it has to be perfect with the arms. It's not, is it?
No. You can even just be standing at the poolside, blowing into the water, lifting your head to breathe, blowing into the water, lifting your head to breathe, and blowing into the water, and lifting your head to breathe. That's your 3 rhythmical breathing practices.
Yeah. And what's this called?
It's a noodle.
It's the noodle, and this is the speedboat position. Why do we have a gap at the front?
To put your face in!
And there it goes. And you can easily practice your blowing bubbles and breathe to the side, blowing bubbles. And at this stage, they don't have to do breathe to the side, but it's nice to introduce a bit of it, isn't it? They can breathe up front, but if they lift their head up, what happens to their bum?
It goes down.
It goes down. But absolutely, we can practice those things, can't we? So we can go from the noodle to
The 2 floats.
2 floats. There's
Your
multiple ways of holding it.
Your wings, your aeroplane position,
Yeah.
whatever you'd like to call it.
Yeah, and then we can go to 1. And then again, multiple ways of holding it here, aren't there? So,
Yep, so thumbs on top, fingers underneath,
yep,
hands on the side, hands on the front, over the top, any way that they find more comfortable.
Exactly, and all those give you different ways of adapting to children's needs, because you get children with different abilities and strengths, but also they all give a different way of teaching something, and that's all about that progression, isn't it? Those progressional steps, don't rush through them.
That's right.
We start on the noodle, make sure that our lesson teaching points are covered clearly, then move on, and if someone's not ready to move on, that's okay. Leave them with the noodle, that's all right. Some people, you can have some people on noodles, some people on floats. That's a good practice.
Don't forget, on your progression sheets, you've got I for introduce, P for practice, and C for complete. Now that doesn't mean you tick all 3 in one lesson.
Please don't.
Please don't tick all 3 in one. So if you're introducing, that's the first week. Practice is the second week. Complete, it could be the third week, it could take up to 6 weeks to complete it.
Absolutely.
And just keep practicing.
Absolutely. So if we go down here, we can see things like move from flat floating position on the back to standing without support, and that does mean no flotation.
It does, yeah.
But some of our children aren't quite tall enough to reach the floor. So this is where it might be good practice to do some one-to-one element, or have all your children practicing with a noodle on their front or their back while they're floating, and then you can walk over to each of them one in turn, take the noodle off them, ask them to float, but you've still got the noodle, so you ask them to float, ask them to get into an upright position, and then catch them under the arms. And that way you're holding them in a sensible way without having to move off the head, shoulders, hands. But you're doing it safely and you're doing it with them, and you've still got full view of the rest of your class.
And then at the end of our practice, obviously we've got those log rolls. So that's where you're floating and your movement is coming in. Can they move within the water, not fight against it?
Yeah, so many children, I've seen lots of teachers where they think, oh, they've moved around, so that's okay, that's a pass. It's not a pass, is it? That, again, is where the introduce, the practice, then complete comes in, because you want them in that perfect position. If you allow them to get ticked off when they're doing all these funny movements, that's not learning how to move with the water, is it?
No.
So there is a beautiful way of doing it, and when you see it happen perfectly, that's when you start to think, yes, this child is ready for that level 3. Not until they can, though.
No.
Any other points we want to flag or highlight at this stage?
And when you think your child is ready to go to that stage 3, just tell your lead to come and do a quick assessment.
Yeah, definitely. Or there is a tuck as well. I quite like the on the front and moving to the back in a tucking position. But please explain what you want them to do, and let them do it all together. There are different movements, aren't there?
There are lots of different movements.
Should everything be one-to-one?
No, please try and do it as a group, all together.
Yeah, and these are wonderful contrast elements, aren't they? You can do as a group. And what have we got? We've got wave moves, so where you have one person being set up in the second, third, and fourth. We've got in pairs.
Yep.
We've got ones. You've got all together, and choose it appropriately, and it helps to keep the focus of the swimmer, doesn't it? And what you'll find is you'll have less upset or bored children going under the water, and you'll spend less time saying, "Don't do that."
It also keeps them warm as well, don't forget, because they do get a bit chilly if they're standing around a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So, good movement, good body positions, good kicking action.
Good kicking action.
Yeah.
So really focusing on that leg kick. Is it nice and fast? Is it together? And that good movement as well through water.
Yeah.
And don't forget your flapped.
You're blacked, yeah. So great demonstrations, great teaching points.
Over demonstrate sometimes.
Yeah.
Over demonstrate.
Yeah. But not like, we're not teaching them like this, are we? If you teach them like this, they'll copy.
Nice
Teach them
and
properly, exactly. So showing all those different variations. 2 teaching points at a time.
Absolutely.
Otherwise it's just too much. And then get them moving again. Make it specific, please. But remember, don't worry about racing through. So many people think, all right, I'll use a noodle, I'll use a float, that's job done. 2 minutes, wow. Take your time, get it right. Happy
you.
with that?
I am. Thank
Wonderful.
you very much.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot,
soon.
everyone.